Happy Multichrome Monday and welcome to today's video. I'm really excited because I'm going to be doing something a little bit different and hopefully starting a new series within the Multichrome Monday series. And in this series, I will be talking about if I would repurchase these 10 randomly selected multichrome eyeshadows from my collection. Now, this was originally done by Dolly Mama Beauty, where she talked about eyeshadow palettes and if she would repurchase them. And there have been other creators such as Annette and Batty Bean who have also done videos talking about eyeshadow palettes and if they would repurchase them if they were coming out right now or if something happened to them. I think I did one or two videos like that with eyeshadow palettes, but today I'm going to be specifically talking about multichrome eyeshadows. So the way I did this, I chose 10 single eyeshadows and they're all from all the different palettes that you just saw in the beginning of the video. So there's 10 empty palettes with varying numbers of eyeshadows in there. Basically used a random number generator and just randomly generated a number per palette depending on the number of shadows that are in there. Now this is not going to be the same exact way I'm going to do every one of each of these videos. I'm thinking I might switch it up. So I do have my single eyeshadows organized by brand, which means that there's not going to be too much randomizing happening here. Obviously the number is random from the palette, but that being said, they're obviously specifically from the palettes of the brands. And I will make sure that in next video I will include some of my empty palettes with other brands. So let's get right into talking about each of these shadows, and these are in no particular order. So the first shadow that got chosen is Glimmer from Clionadh Cosmetics, and this is an iridescent multichrome shadow. And so the way I'm going to be thinking about it is if I panned these eyeshadows or if something happened, would I repurchase them? Not necessarily I didn't have them, would I buy them? Now some of these were gifted to me and I will mention it as I go. And this first shade I did purchase myself. So this is a predominantly icy blue to purple kind of multichrome shade. It's got the tiniest bit of texture to it. So the way it picks up from the pan, but it does smooth out quite a bit. And I'm not really sure if I would repurchase this one because this is a very common kind of shifty shadow. And so for that reason, I wouldn't necessarily repurchase this one if I panned it or something was to happen to it. The next shade is Castor from Terra. And this shadow is actually not a multichrome. It's just like a regular kind of shimmer. It's a little bit more on the satin side. I think the shade is relatively new to Terra Moons. I think it launched pretty recently. And as much as I absolutely love the tone of this color, and I do appreciate that it's not the sparkliest, not the shiniest, it's still got a really nice sheen to it, it is just not my favorite kind of finish, so I would not repurchase this shadow, and this one was gifted to me. The next shadow is a jeweled multichrome, and this one is from Devinah Cosmetics. It is Exosphere, and this is probably one of the most shiny jeweled type of multichromes out there. This one is just absolutely stunning. You can see I actually hit pan on this. I believe I used it in a multichrome dragon look or something like that for a Halloween maybe a couple years ago. So I did use quite a bit of it, and that is why I hit pan on it. And I do think that I would repurchase this one because I love the color. I love the shift to the blue. It is just such a vibrant green. Even though it has a darker base, it's so beautifully metallic and smooth. I would definitely want to make sure I have something like this in my collection. The next shadow is Soothsayer from ShineBySD, and this was part of their collab collection, the duality with Biz Revolta and M. Jones 5018. So this one technically, I don't even think I could repurchase, but let's just pretend that it is permanent to their line. I did receive this collection in PR. I absolutely love this shade. I would definitely repurchase this one. It is almost like a neutrally purple shadow. ShineBySD does purples really well. It's got a purple shift to it, and it has so many little flecks throughout it. It is so beautiful and so dimensional. I do think this is a great everyday wearable multichrome. Another black-based multichrome, this is Sandblast from Clionadh Cosmetics. I did purchase this shadow myself. This is a very dark kind of multichrome, so it's not really something I reach for often, though I do love the color of it. It's also not the most metallic, especially out of the jeweled multichrome collection. As you can see, the shift is pretty strong on it, and it's really beautiful. But I don't think I would repurchase this one because of the price tag, because of the almost lack of shine, and because it's just not really a color that I get a lot of use out of. Next up is Flare Star from Terra Cosmetics. I believe this one I received in PR. Flare Star is a little bit more piecey, a little bit flaky, but not in like a large chunky kind of way. And it is so sparkly and really shifty. It is a little bit on the sheer side. And I don't think I would repurchase this one. I just don't really wear pink shadows like this too often. It's definitely more of a Barbie kind of pink. And it is just not my preference. It's not really something I gravitate to. That being said, I think this could be a great everyday shadow as well, paired with just some warm neutral browns. But I mean, look at that sparkle. It's got so much shine to it, and it does smooth out. Next up is Retro from the Dynasty Series 2 collection by ShineBySD, and I did purchase this shadow myself. The level of shine on the shadow, it is so beautiful. It does have the maybe slightest base to it, so it does remind me a little bit of like Verte in the way that it's almost like glowing, but it does not have as much of a gray base. It's definitely more sheer. I think that because it can be sheer even though it's still really bright, it just makes it even more versatile, and I love the purple shift. It's a bit unexpected and it's absolutely beautiful. I would definitely repurchase this one. I mean, I feel like this is just such a must-have, especially for spring and summer. On to Soul Laze from Devinah Cosmetics. I did receive this shadow in PR. This shadow, while it is very beautiful, it is not my level of shine that I prefer. And this one does become even less shiny on the lid. So I would not repurchase this one as much as it is really beautiful and smooth. The shifts on it are definitely surprising. I mean, you have just a lot going on from pink to green to orange to yellow. Like, it's definitely very shifty. It's just not too shiny. It has a little bit of translucency to it, so it's definitely layerable. Next up is Burnt Sienna from Clionadh Cosmetics. This is part of their Deep Iridescent Multichromes, and I absolutely love their Deep Iridescent Multichromes. This is such a beautiful shadow, extremely dimensional, extremely everyday wearable type of multichrome. It does have quite a bit of that shift going on to it, which could be a little jarring depending on what your preference is. But I do feel like while you can really see the shift, I don't think it's too extreme based on just the straight on tone of the shadow. It is so beautiful. If you're into orangey kind of shades, you'll definitely like this one. And it does look very, very bright. It has a very, very light base to it. So this one is great to pair with some neutral matte shadows. And the last shadow for today's video that I'm going to be talking about is Titan, and this is from Terra Cosmetics. And I think I purchased this one myself, but I'm not 100% sure. I know I definitely have a dedicated video on whichever collection from the past couple years this was part of. The shade is a bit similar to Burnt Sienna and Retro in a sense that it has ever slightly a little bit of a base to it. And it is just so vibrant. I mean, again, it looks like it's glowing. I do think this one has a stronger base, maybe closer to Burnt Sienna versus Retro. Retro is just a bit more sheer. And it is very, very smooth, and the shift is just so beautiful. I love the tone of this one. I'm not sure if I would repurchase this one as much as I absolutely love the color of this. I feel like I gravitate more towards other kinds of shadows in terms of color, but this one is another good one to pair with some warm neutral browns. So there you have it. I would repurchase about 4 out of these 10 shadows. Let me know in the comments below if you're surprised by any of these. It's definitely a little bit hard to gauge because I do have a larger collection, so I do see a lot of redundancies in my collection. So I think maybe for next video, I might need to do it from different kinds of perspectives because it's just going to make it a little bit more clear cut for me. I mean, everybody knows multichrome shadows or just special shadows from indie brands are pretty expensive, and I think that alone makes me pickier. So that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.